if this motion passes, then we are revoking the building permit. Is that correct?
That would be my understanding. If this motion were to pass, then the steps of the city would be to establish a stop work order then, if the development permit is rescinded.
Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, that would be my understanding.
We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Given that this motion was passed, what would be the city's next steps? Or do we know what our next steps are?
Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, we will work with planning and development to go through and figure out what the process is and be in contact with Hope Mission.
Item 5.1, notice of motion. Councillor Nielsen. Thank you very much. Make sure your mic's on.
You bet. Thank you. I would like to move that City Council lifts from the table motion 5/24 that reads that City Council rescinds motion 142/23 from the May 8th, 2023 regular council meeting, which stated, move that City Council approves the direct control permit application for the Hope Mission Shelter. City Council directs administration to ensure that the fencing for the Hope Mission Shelter aligns to the building code and is aesthetically pleasing.
Moved by Councillor Nielsen. Any discussion? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried.
Thank you. I would now like to move that City Council rescinds motion 142/23 from the May 8th, 2023 regular council meeting, which stated, move that City Council approves the direct control permit application for the Hope Mission Shelter. City Council directs administration to ensure that the fencing of the Hope Mission Shelter aligns to the building code and is aesthetically pleasing. And I'd like to speak to that if I may.
Go ahead. Moved
Thank
by
you very
Councillor
much.
Nielsen.
I made some notes here so I don't come across as a bumbling fool or less. When we as council first passed the development permit, we did so based on a number of assumptions. The first assumption that it was going to save RCMP time. And the second assumption, it was going to save hospital time and resources. As a council, we have heard from the RCMP that it has indeed saved them time and resources, as they've seen fewer people in cells, as they were able to deliver those folks to Hope Mission or the hospital rather than having them in cells. The second assumption of saving hospital time and resources has been refuted, as we have all heard lately. When you couple that information with other facts, and the other facts would be Leduc and Ponoka both shut down their emergency shelters. We had a report back from administration that there's no evidence of emergency shelters in central Alberta besides Red Deer and Edmonton. And recently at the recent RCMP Town Hall inspector stands indicated the majority of homeless population are from our area. But he did go on to say that that is based on information that those people share with the RCMP, and it isn't verified in any other way at this time. In Council's strategic plan, we had 4 goals. 2 goals I'm going to speak to today. One is economy, with one of the measures of success in this goal being a tax strategy is in place that recognizes competitiveness, value in service delivery, and investment into, quote, the quality of place. And I think one of the concerns that we've heard is whether we have quality of place currently in our community with the social disorder that's going on. Goal number 2 speaks to safety. And the goal says, working together, we will ensure the sustained safety, security, and inclusivity of our city and its communities. And while I know, and I've heard from a number of folks in our community who say, I feel perfectly safe in this community. And I have to say, I'm one of those people. We've also heard from people who say, I don't feel safe in my community. And I think we need to pay attention to their concerns as well. And then lastly, the Government of Alberta has indicated they're establishing the Canadian Centre of Recovery Excellence, which will be designed to evaluate programs and make recommendations for improvement. And I think my interpretation of that, while it could be challenged, is that there's obviously concern at the government level that what is currently happening as it's dealing with vulnerable and or homeless individuals isn't working, or isn't working as well as the government feels that it could or should be working. And that's why I bring this motion forward at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Billingsley.
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Council, I want to make this very clear, or have a clear understanding. If this motion passes, then we are revoking the building permit. Is that correct?
That would be my understanding.
Go ahead, Sue.
Through the chair to Councillor Billingsley, the development permit.
The development permit.
Correct.
Sorry, thank you. Which, may I follow up?
Yep.
Which a couple months ago, you advised us of the legal jeopardy. So I think that that should be very clear to all of us sitting here of what that puts us into and where the risks involved in if this passes. So I think it's very important and very clear.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just need clarification. So we're talking about the development permit, but this whole thing is about fencing. So are we talking about fencing or are we talking about the whole development permit? I guess this is through to administration. We approve to ensure that the fencing for Hope Mission shelter aligns with the building code and is aesthetically pleasing. That's what the motion is. No?
My interpretation, sorry.
Go ahead, Sue.
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, I believe that when the motion was made, that there was like an amendment to the original. So we had approval of the development permit, and then there was additional commentary put in on that condition. That's why it speaks to it right in the motion. We could have just added a different.
Okay, so when this is rescinded, then we would go back to the original approval of the development permit?
I don't think so. Emily, do you? Yeah, please. We'll just get Emily to come up
Okay,
and speak.
I'm sorry. I just need clarification. And I maybe should have sent this ahead, but I thought it was kind of clear. But
I just want to check it. Oh, it is on. Wonderful. My apologies. Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, my understanding is when the development permit was initially approved back in May, that there was that amendment made to specifically note the fencing, but the only motion that was actually approved to approve the development permit contained that wording regarding the fencing. So if this one were to be rescinded, there would not be another motion that we could fall back on that was approved by council,
okay,
if that makes sense.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Councillor Nielsen.
Through the chair to administration. So again, I would need some counsel here in the sense that if this motion were to pass, then the steps of the city would be to establish a stop work order then, if the development permit is rescinded.
Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, that would be my understanding, but before I give a definitive answer on that, I would like to review the steps in the land use bylaw just to make sure that, because there's a couple of different mechanisms that could be followed.
Anything further? Yeah, Councillor Blatz.
Thank you. So it's not shocking at all that I'm going to be speaking against the motion. When we're talking about Hope Mission and everything that has transpired over the past year, I have seen how this has torn our community apart and has divided everybody. And when we're speaking about community safety, I think that we need to also remember that we're speaking about the safety of the people that use this shelter, and how if there is no shelter in place, then that means that that these people have nowhere else to go during the winter. We'll have to start scrambling for an emergency shelter yet again. If the trailers that are there remain in place, then there is no place for there to be any sort of programming or advancing any services that they could provide, such as nursing care, mental health care, all of that. I have been to the shelter and I have seen the lack of space that they have currently, and there is no way for you to put anything else in there. And so for me, when we're talking about human rights, when we're talking about safety, when we're talking about community members, these people are also important in our community, and taking care of them is something that I don't think is optional. And so for me, I could not support this motion because it goes against community safety and well-being, and it also continues to divide our community even further. So thank you.
Anything further? Go ahead, Councillor Aberley.
Thank you. I'm going to make this very quick. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I do feel that a permanent shelter that has the space and the opportunity to separate men from women, to have counseling rooms, to have a space where they are able to do more than they can with the MAP program, which is in a large sense what Hope Mission is right now, is providing safety and is for our entire community. And I appreciate that people do not feel safe. I am very concerned that every time we speak to a ministry or to another organization, they continue to tell us that shelters are necessary. We are literally a step ahead of communities around us, providing safety for our entire community. This decision is not based on me thinking that I am looking after one portion. I really do think that this is an answer to looking after our entire community, and that we need to really take a moment to look at everything that has transpired over the last 5-6 years and the decisions that led us to this year ago. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I agree with what Councillor Blatz was saying, but we are becoming a hub with the fact that Leduc, Camrose, Ponoka are not offering shelters anymore. We are a hub for persons with developmental disabilities, but the resources are provided for all of those people who need their services. The services required here, basically all that's happening is we're enabling people to have a place to sleep and have a meal and then wander our community for the rest of the day. And I know if we had a bigger facility, there would be programming, but something could be done during the day right now. We have, at the last council meeting, we had a group come in that is going to provide some counseling and try to assist people who are having some mental or addiction challenges. But I just see the fact that we are now becoming a hub, and yes, it's been secondhand, but we have heard from different sources that there are people from Manitoba and Saskatchewan coming to Wetaskiwin now. And one person was asked, "Why are you in Wetaskiwin?" And the individual said, "Because it's the place to party." So I'm having a challenge with this, and I am torn. But if we're going to become the hub, we are too small to be able to do that. Thank you.
Councillor Blatz.
Thank you. My statements are in response to Councillor Elliott's. We can't say that we are becoming the hub of anything, considering that at the RCMP town hall, they said that that is not the case, and that the people that were using the Leduc shelter had all went to Edmonton. So I do want to make that clear. But on the other side of this, we are capped at the number of beds that are allowed by fire code in those buildings. And so we can't become the hub of anything if we are capped at 45 or 50 beds. And so that is something that I really need to drive home, is the fact that we've had that many homeless people. In fact, we've had that many homeless people for a long time. And so this isn't anything new. We've had more people than that have all been from Wetaskiwin. The problem is that if we don't have a shelter, it's not that these people just magically go away or they go back to whatever community they're from. These people die. And so I just want to make it clear that without a shelter, it's not increasing the aesthetically pleasing look of our community or even increasing safety, because at that point we have people that are intense, we have people that are in unsafe structures, we have people that are stuck without any medical care, any mental health care, any sort of care at all. And so these people just end up dying. And that is not something that I can stomach. And another portion of this is that when we were talking about legal ramifications, we were told before that there is risk that if we stop the development permit that Hope Mission could sue us and get go after us for the money that was already spent. And I don't think that that is a good use of taxpayer dollars, especially when that includes legal fees. And so that is what I'm going to say to that.
Anything further? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Nielsen.
Through the chair then to administration, given that this motion was passed, what would be the city's next steps? Or do we know what our next steps are?
Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, we will work with planning and development to go through and figure out what the process is and be in contact with Hope Mission. And then we will report back at the next council meeting if there are any other steps that need to be taken.
Thank you very much.